This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your normal partners in crime, Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn, with another Buffalo Bills victory. Aaron, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling fantastic, man. I am wrong all the time, and I admit when I'm wrong all the time. It happens so much to me. But one thing I wasn't wrong about, and it's looking better and better every week, is my 11-5 Buffalo Bills prediction. We are 4-1, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, today was not a pretty game. I think a lot of people predicted that. Both you and I were really low on the score, and it was just as low as I think lower than what both of us predicted. I think I predicted 23 and you predicted like 27, and it came in at 22. Came in at 21. So, really low scoring game, kind of ugly field, some weird choices that we'll get into from a coaching decision standpoint, and a lot of things that put them in a tough spot. But they got a W. They went on the road against a team that's had a winning record for 3 straight weeks, who was in the playoffs 2 years ago and lost out on tiebreakers last year, and is a tough place to play. And there's a reason that we were underdogs in Vegas, and the Bills went in there and they got a W. And it wasn't great. It wasn't pretty, but they are 4-1 heading into the bye. And I don't care who you are. Nobody could ask for more than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. This game, too, is a really tough game to go on the road against a playoff caliber team and put them away. And this is a good team. It's a good defense. They made the Bills earn every yard. And at the end, we ended up pulling out just enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where you have to be able to, make these kind of tough games when it matters. And it's something that when you're putting this together in this manner and you're having to ask to overcome some difficult plays, we had some terrible injuries that luckily, knock on some wood, doesn't look like it was too serious, but there were moments where we lost Matt Milano, moments where we lost Jordan Poyer, moments where Ed Oliver was down. We lost multiple offensive linemen. Those are the kind of games that you just have to find a way to make something happen. You have to find a way to make a play and be able to figure out how to be able to, come away with something here. And, again, it wasn't perfect. There were some play calls we'll probably get into. There were some bad decisions that we'll get into. But ultimately, they did what it took, and that's all you can ask.
Yeah, man. And you know what, though? Like, at the end of the year, we talked about this after the first win. At the end of the year, it's not about how you win the game. It's about going down and taking care of business. And ultimately, the Bills pulled out enough plays and in the end had the ball at the end to be able to run it out. Sometimes the ball has to bounce your way. We've seen it with the New England Patriots for 20 years. Obviously, they're a good, dominant team, but a lot of the games that they've won, especially against teams like the Buffalo Bills where we're hanging around, the ball just happens to bounce their way or a call goes their way. You need some of that luck throughout the year. It's a marathon season. The parity in the NFL is incredibly tight, especially a team like the Titans and the Bills who are both kind of in that wild card battle spot. And when you have those tight matchups, man, sometimes it does come down to a couple bad calls or the ball bouncing your way or a kick going off or 3 kicks going off, whatever it is. Sometimes you need that throughout a season, and it doesn't make your team any worse. At the end of the year, when the Bills make the playoffs, they're not going to say, well, they barely beat the Titans. You either win or you lose, and they were able to go down, win, going into the bye. I am concerned about some of the injuries here, and hopefully the bye is enough time to get some of these guys back. But I think it's a testament to how they've built this roster, and it's something we talked about all off season with the depth that they brought in here. Even with a lot of the injuries, it didn't really feel like things got out of control or they really missed the beat too much. And we had a pretty substantial one with Mitch Morse, and then Cordy Ford goes down, and he really starts to stretch how thin that offensive line is because Adrian Waddle's out for the year. You got guys that you thought were going to be there.
Inseki wasn't even dressed today.
Inseki's not even dressed. You just cut McDermott. So you're really starting to stress that, and you're battling attrition mid-game. And I think at least it was enough to win. Everybody did just enough to kind of not let that get too out of control or really flood the team and turn things around. Because that kind of stuff has happened to the Bills before, man. 1 or 2 injuries just turns the tide of the game. And they were kind of able to battle attrition through this game.
Yeah, I mean, just surviving, figure out how to move on, really speaks to some of the depth that being added here. And, before we get too far into it, make sure you guys are checking out what we have going on at cover1.net. Today was an awesome day in the premium Slack channel, just being able to enjoy this game and going through the stress and the lows and having everybody normally overreact to the Josh Allen terrible interception, but being there to pull each other together, talk about what things were going on, stay together in what was happening. It was just a great environment to be a part of, and was a lot of fun to be able to, stay and enjoy that in our own community there. And Aaron, you were a huge part of that today.
Yeah, I spent more time on Twitter during the game today than I normally do, and it was a huge mistake. The stuff I saw, I'm the kind of person where if I see something totally ridiculous, I have a really hard time not commenting on it. And people do that to me too, and that's fair. But there's just too much of that negativity, just knee-jerk reaction type stuff that's going on Twitter. We get a little bit of it in our own Slack channel, but like you said, we kind of are able to pull each other out of that without it becoming a heated debate or something that lingers on past that play. I saw arguments on Twitter going on from the third quarter all the way through to the end of the game. It's like, how can you sit and enjoy the game and really watch the game if you're stuck on the interception or you're stuck on whatever, some call that the ref made and arguing about it for 30 minutes. So I don't love being on Twitter during the game. I do love being in the Slack channel. And, I made the mistake this week, and I'll be donating back more of my time to the Slack channel here moving forward after the bye.
No, I agree. Let's jump right into this here from kind of our overall thoughts. We started to get into it here. And I think as we go into the offense, it's something where this was kind of what we expected. I think that they put together a really good game plan early. I think that once again, we got into maybe a rough third quarter, and that it seemed like the Titans maybe made a few better adjustments than we did at half. But overall, it ends with some decent numbers. Josh Allen ends up 219 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 23 of 32 overall. But I had 3 drops and 3 throwaways, so an adjusted completion percentage of 88.4%. I thought that he took some smart sacks, which I haven't said in a long time. Plays where you could see him looking downfield, trying to maybe cock one back and launch it, and instead live to fight another day. Went out of bounds a couple times, some smart throwaways. He did have an awful, wretched interception that you absolutely can't have. But I guess the silver lining is it was one terrible decision, and I think that you got to live with that.
And I think the interception, I didn't get to watch it, obviously, and we'll have to wait till Tuesday when the All-22 comes out. I think it was a miscommunication. I think Eric even highlighted that on Twitter. Those are going to happen, man, and we were talking about it a little bit here before we went live. I'm not going to kill him over every interception. A 1 interception game is not going to bother me. If he ends up with the 1 interception, 2 touchdowns every game for the rest of his career, I don't care about that ratio. What I do care about is not piling on those mistakes. When he came back out, he didn't come back out and try to force it. You saw him throw the ball away a couple more times. You saw him, like you said, take a sack, doing some of the things that we hadn't really seen of him. And even the announcers on the broadcast, I mentioned it a couple of times when he scrambled out. Josh Allen, before the hit, would try to jump over a defender or put his shoulder down and go through it, and he just took the slide a couple times. That last run, I'd like him to slide a little bit prettier. I thought his
the last one. He slid pretty ugly almost every time.
I was like, dude, you're going to break a collarbone sliding trying to avoid getting hit. You're going to hurt yourself even more. So I don't know why it's so hard for some of these quarterbacks. EJ Manuel was always that same way. He just could never figure out how to slide. It is a hard thing to do.
I've got to think like Russell Wilson's baseball background and that pop-up, that like kind of pop-up slide into second base has to come naturally. But just go watch his film. He does it so well for a running quarterback.
Yeah, just do a nice little slide, keep yourself from getting hurt. But other than that, no, I don't think that a lot of people can really complain about Josh Allen. This was a really good defense they went up against, and it's a good defense at all 3 levels. It's not a great defense, but they're good at all 3 levels. And Josh kind of picked them apart for the most part of the day. Obviously, it was a low-scoring game. Everybody expected that. The weather had something to do with that. But I thought this might be maybe the best game of Allen's career, especially with the bounce back after how poorly he played and then getting the injury, being able to play with really limited reps throughout the week and coming in and playing this game at the way he did on the road. And really, we talked about it a lot this week, big-time playoff implications in this game. And he stepped up to the plate, I thought. The one pick, he'll probably get picked apart on Twitter, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say we're not dismissing that. It was a terrible interception. What we're saying is you can live to fight another day, and having one terrible play is the kind of game that he can work around when he makes multiple good plays, multiple good decisions, checked in and out of positive plays, getting into that position. We can work with that. That's the kind of thing that we're able to kind of get our minds around and be able to work around. But, there are 3 teams in the AFC that have 0 or 1 loss. That's the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
That's a good position to be in no matter what.
Yeah, and I think the critics of the pick will say, well, they missed 3 field goals, and if they make those 3 field goals, they win the game. I'm not really interested in living in a should-have, would-have, could-have. I've done that as a Bills fan for a year and tried to do that, wrap my head around some of these losses and say, well, if we would have just done this, but you know what, you didn't. And at the end of the day, it was an L no matter what you do. So we got to win, and I thought Allen played pretty much well. I through the game, because we do the disgruntled and gruntled, I keep a list of players as they make good plays or a play that pops to me, and I keep a check mark next to their name, and I do it for good plays and bad plays. I really didn't have a lot of negative plays for anybody, but most of the games this year, Allen has been equally positive and negative plays throughout the game. I had him down for 2 negative plays that I saw today, and one was the interception, and one was I would have likened him to just take a sack. He took an extra hit on a sack where he could have just gone down and so I was being a little picky there. But my point is, there wasn't a lot of bad from Allen today, like we've seen in the past. So, like Sean McDermott says, man, that growth mindset, I saw a lot of growth and him learning and adding to his game and putting things in the positive direction. Now, can he maintain that, or is this a short term, I got to shut up my critics for a week, and he's going to go back to hero ball in 2 weeks? I hope that's not true, and I hope he just kind of continues to build on his, like you like to say, his little bricks of positivity, and hope he builds himself a nice little wall.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing. It's just trying to, you have cleared for a lot of fans that progress is not linear, no matter how much we want it to be. You have to find the opportunity and the ability to be able to, make more positive steps than negative. And I think today was a good example of that. I know you and I spent a lot of time talking about toxic differential, and the toxic differential technically today was 4-2 Titans, because they had, the turnover and 3 big plays. We had 2 big plays. There wasn't a lot beyond that, but that also means that we don't count the 4 missed field goals. We had multiple 3 18 and 19-yard plays that were right there to be able to impact that. Obviously, some of those big runs at the end of the game, the fact that we ran for 3 straight first downs when we were trying to milk the game and really lean on them, I think that's incredible to be able to put that kind of thing together. So although technically it was right there, I think that if you counted the big plays of the game that would include those missed field goals and our turnover on downs, if we're going to go that path, I would say it would be more like 6-5 Buffalo that was there. But, I think you've laid that out off air and a couple different times. When it's within 1 or 2 there, you give yourself a chance to win.
Yeah, and I mean, football is, we saw with one of the first downs, it's a game of inches. And some of these stats too, man, this is my problem with a lot of the analytics community, and people here that are in the Slack channel know this argument that I make all the time is stats without context really don't matter. And so, yes, we like to lean on the toxic differential a little bit, but without the context of having watched the game, it's not always 100%. You win toxic differential, you're going to win the game, because there are context and variables to it, like 19-yard plays or missed field goals, or, like you said, turnover on downs. Those things don't show up in this. So some of that stuff's a little wonky, and it doesn't always show up in the stats. But I think more times than not, it's a decent indicator, and something that if you win outright, you should be able to turn out and pull away a win. But tough one for Tennessee. I couldn't imagine how frustrated Titans fans are feeling, knowing that game literally slipped away with 3 missed field goals. Could have been a totally different game for them. So I feel for them, because going to 2-3, not a good look, although that AFC South's a little wonky. But I don't know. I think we have too long of a week here where Bills fans will probably pick this win apart too much over this next week without a game to prepare for by Wednesday. I think there'll probably be some over-analysis, a little analysis paralysis, if you will. You're not going to catch it on my Twitter feed. I'm just going to celebrate the victory, and I'm on to the next, and hope we use this bye week to get everybody back healthy.
Absolutely. And, I think it's easy to nitpick here, but whatever. We're foreign.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
And we're also going to use the bye week to release my man, Zay Jones. Shout out to my man, Zay Jones. Going to be a tough week for the Jones family, Robert, Caleb, and myself. It's going to be hard for us.
Yeah, well, because I have the box score up here, and he's not on it.
He's not on it. No, he only had one snap.
He did not receive a target. And his man, the patron saint of undrafted free agents, Duke Williams, came in with a lot of special teams reps, caught all 4 of his targets with a touchdown. I mean, I don't think that's actually exaggeration or hyperbole. I don't. I think it's possible that Zay Jones may not be on the Buffalo Bills when we play the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, there's no spot for him left, and this is what I was saying all week long. With if they really think that there's an upgrade, whether it's on the roster or not, do it. Upgrade that position. Sure. I'm all for an upgrade at all times. The one thing that bothers me is a lot of people had their unverified rumors and stuff that this had been happening. And you know what? Like, if you really feel that there's an upgrade, don't hesitate. Don't waste any time. Make the upgrade. Deal with it later. That's just how I am. So for Zay, it stinks because we're probably not going to be able to get any type of trade value for him unless it's some type of Cardale Jones trade where you get like a late future 7th or
as a throw in where we're giving draft compensation. You know, I could see that he's the reason that we can give a 3rd for AJ Green instead of a 2nd, maybe something like that.
Yeah, as part of a package. I can see that. But yeah, no, it's redundant at this point. His lack of skill set's a little bit redundant. What he brings, what I kind of highlighted throughout the week where he was and what he was actually contributing in that 1 of 11 he was doing, a little bit redundant now that Duke is there. And we saw, I give Isaiah McKenzie a hard time, but every once in a while he has a flash play like that huge play that he had on the reverse jet sweep. I don't mind keeping him hanging out on the roster to get one of those plays every 3 games. You know what I mean? Like, and Zay's never going to be that guy. So if you're going to have redundancy, at least have it in a guy that can have a breakout play every once in a while for you. And at least McKenzie does provide that. So he might not play every game with Roberts in and once Foster gets healthy, but Zay's just overwhelmingly redundant at this point.
No, I agree. And I think it reinforced it. Obviously, I've gone overboard on the John Brown wide receiver 1 kind of message. But, you know, it's just a difference in his ability to gain separation and make tough catches. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, he's not Julio Jones. He's not one of these monster wide receiver 1s, but he makes big plays when it matters. He went for 5 catches for 75 yards. All 5 catches were for first down.
Yeah, he's a first down machine.
Like, it's just when he gets the ball, it's an automatic 15 yards every time. And it's just that kind of opportunity. Like, he was responsible for that touchdown drive and what we put together and being able to – the first one. Being able to go through that kind of positioning and then the threat that he creates that opens up some of that, because then all of a sudden he has gravity on the field where you're pulling the safety his way. And that I don't think it's a stretch to say that him wide on the other side of the field when they bring Isaiah McKenzie back on that pop pass jet sweep, you know, that gave Isaiah McKenzie a couple extra steps because the safety had to shade further over to Smoke's side. And being able to do something like that is big. And I won't be upset if we go out, and I know the names that everybody sees are Stephon Diggs, AJ Green. I have no idea who's actually on the market. I don't think it's crazy that Brandon Beane sees an opportunity to maybe add someone here over the bye week, especially now that we have a couple extra days to maybe ingrain them into the system, into the playbook, into the offense, and you can afford to do that. We've obviously had some dings on the offensive line. We'll get to them in just a second here. I wouldn't be shocked to see some movement there. Probably not a Trent Williams level. I would be surprised at that. But, you know, if we think that one of these injuries are more serious, maybe we replace Connor McDermott with an upgrade of more of an NFL caliber guy. But let's go into that offensive line. I thought that there was some real positive plays at the end when they were leaning on them, but this was something we were worried about without Ty and Secchi on the outside. We were worried about the defensive line and the front 7 of this Titans team, and I think that proved out. I thought that they were just adequate for most of this game.
Well, the game ended up playing into their strength at the end of the game, right? They are built to, you know, Quentin Spain has not been very good in pass protection this year, but he's been a monster in the run game. Feliciano has been pretty fantastic, I think, in the run game. And even on the ends there, the tackles have been much better in the run game than they have in the past. So I think it played into their hands. I think that plays into Frank Gore's ability, and we saw that kind of in that last drive. That's really where they're going to thrive. Up until that point, though, I was pretty unhappy with the performance overall. So yes, they did seal the victory, and that's doing their job and doing their 1 of 11. But I think with how well Josh Allen played, it was in spite of poor performance on the offensive line. They really didn't do him a lot of favors. This is a good defense, but without Cameron Wake in there, they didn't really have any elite pass rushers. Harold Landry maybe come one at some point. He's not there quite yet. But I didn't think they were giving Allen the kind of time he needed. Back there when he did have a clean pocket, he was operating fantastic, but I wasn't happy. And I think the people that may be upset with Allen, if he had a little bit better protection, I think his numbers go up. I think the offense moves more effectively.
Yeah, another position group that I know has come up in the chat here. Eric brought up some questions, and other folks did in the premium channel Slack, that I think the tight end position is another one in need of an upgrade, but we have it. And I think that fans, because he's been injured the whole time, and we literally haven't seen one live snap from him in a preseason or a regular season game, completely dismiss Tyler Kroft as a zero and no net positive. And he's good. Now, he doesn't have the physical upside of what Dawson Knox has. Dawson Knox is a physical freak and someone who has the potential to be a game-changing kind of tight end. Now, we saw again today, he had a couple opportunities for tough catches and couldn't come down with them. And it's debatable. I know Eric and I both kind of said in the premium Slack that I wouldn't count them as drops because there was good defense, but they were plays that I think Greg Olsen comes up with that catch. I think Zach Ertz comes up with that catch. Obviously, I think Gronk comes up with that catch. And that if you want to be a big-time tight end, you've got to make those tough catches. Tommy Sweeney is obviously not what we saw in preseason. He's a solid roster caliber player, but I'm fine if he's inactive on game day. Lee Smith is a good blocker, but he also has some technique issues, some lapses. We saw the penalties last week. Tyler Kroft is going to step in as tight end one. And then being able to take the pressure off of Dawson Knox to be a really above average tight end two, and to be able to have two tight end sets where Kroft and Knox are on the field is really dangerous, because you can fully pass out of that with no risk or issue. So adding him is like a trade in my mind that we're just going to plug in. And I believe confidently coming back from Miami, he's going to be ready to play. I think that's going to be a nice addition. The same idea, adding Devin Singletary to the running back crew. TJ Yeldon, I think, had some nice flashes today.
Yeah, I thought he's done well the last couple of weeks. But
yeah, adding those two are like adding two weapons. So even if we don't go for some big swing trade, I think those are nice additions.
Yeah, so it's going to get really funny here with the roster, because I do think, in talking about the offensive line earlier, I know people want to add to wide receiver, and it's sexy because there's some names from fantasy football that may be available. The logic does make sense. I'm not knocking fans for thinking that, but I think really the upgrades, I think you hit on the head, need to be if Ty Nsekhe can't get healthy in the next week, and Cody Ford, we don't know what's going on there. But if you have so many lingering injuries there, I think something needs to be addressed there. But then also, like you said, at tight end, if Kroft can come back, which I hope that he can, because this has been one of the most frustrating things for me this season, is both Kroft and Robert Foster. We haven't seen a healthy Robert Foster either yet this year. And that might be the upgrade to the wide receiver room that people want in a trade. If Robert Foster can even come back and be half of the guy he was to finish the year last year, that'd be a huge addition to this team. But having that lingering injury is getting very frustrating. Holding 7 receivers, obviously you and I both just agreed that we think Zay's out. We're still going to be holding 6 receivers. So I don't know that there is room to add another guy. I think they like the guys they have. But tight end, man, it's going to get really tricky there, too. I agree. I think Kroft is going to be more than adequate, above average, probably when he comes back. Like you said, not flashy in anywhere, but does everything pretty well. And, yeah, Knox was frustrating today, man. Like you said, he's got to catch the ones. I think that's his 4th drop of the year now. And so that's a little bit frustrating. I get that. He did have a really nice block or two in the run game, so he does flash plays and stuff. He's learning on the job, and it's unfair to him to expect him and get those Gronk comparisons that we are throwing kind of out there. And he makes some big boy catches, so you expect to see it all the time, but he's still a young guy. So I think it's great to have Kroft come back and for Knox to be able to kind of take that step back, similar to Josh Allen took a step back, although from injury in his rookie year, and not get as many reps and be able to see somebody else who's a pro, who's done it for a long time, do the job, and maybe he can learn something. And then, like you said, bring him in, get him into space, and then really throw the defense off and let him make those plays that he is good at. But, yeah, I don't know that he's a tight end one yet, and hopefully Kroft comes back and proves, the Bills were pretty aggressive to go get him, and hopefully he proves being right in that move. Because I know the fan base is frustrated. I hear the calls into WGR. People wanted to cut him 2 weeks ago, and it is about long-term patience. When you're dealing with the roster and cutting guys and moving on from guys and putting guys on the IR. In hindsight, it may have made sense to put him on the IR, but we didn't know that he was going to sprain his ankle when he returned. So let's see how this plays out, man. I bet he was close this week, and then it was just a numbers game. And with all the wide receiver stuff going on, they just said, you know what, let's let you wait another week.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we're in a position that we're so good that we can afford to just take a game for granted, but they did what it took to play today. They didn't push Taron Johnson. They didn't push Devin Singletary. They didn't push Tyler Kroft. They didn't push Ty and Secchi. Adding those 4 players are huge additions, 5 with Robert Foster. Those are 5 NFL caliber players and guys that can contribute to this offense incrementally, or this defense, or wherever they're playing with Taron Johnson, that we can now add those things going in. And again, I want to temper that. I still have a really bright future for Dawson Knox. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I was not excited about that on draft night, and I'm way more excited now. And I'm not saying that Tyler Kroft is in that Zach Ertz, George Kittle, that kind of realm. He's not, but he might be the 12th best tight end in the NFL, and that's helpful. We don't have that right now. So inserting a starting caliber tight end who deserves to be there and is a dual threat blocking and passing is going to be helpful. So I think the offense is coming along from an offensive line standpoint. We saw Mitch Morris go out with an ankle injury.
I'm going to be monitoring that pretty hard, man, because that's, if you get those other guys back. But Mitch was the gem of free agency, and they obviously losing him with the concussion and training camp hurt. And I heard he was carted off. I didn't see it during the game.
No. He was jogging on the sideline.
He was. Okay. I didn't catch any of his injury reports. So hopefully he's good to go after the bye, because that would be pretty devastating to us.
I'll say there was a couple plays where he was on the sideline next to Bobby Johnson where I was almost certain he was coming back in the game, and it looked like he was lobbying to. So I guess I'm glad they played it safe, but I like that he was close enough to do that. So I think this is kind of similar. I don't know if you remember the Detroit preseason game where I was watching Quentin Spain lobby to go back into the game, and then all of a sudden he got carted off and was in a walking boot. I want to temper fans' expectations. With an ankle injury, it's very reasonable that we could hear Mitch Morris is in a walking boot and on crutches leaving the facility today. That is a precautionary, appropriate step to take pressure off of an ankle injury, especially with a bye week coming. So if you hear that, don't overreact. It did look like he was lobbying to get back into the game. That always gets worse when you take the tape off and you go sit down and let the swelling come up. So he's going to have a rough couple of days here if it was a nasty ankle tweak. But I don't think, again, we neither of us are medical professionals, but it didn't look too serious. So hopefully we're getting him and Secchi back, and that can give us some options.
Yeah, absolutely. I think flipping over to the other side of the ball here, because there really isn't a whole lot more to talk. Well, the only other thing I'll talk about the offense is I think I didn't love the play call on the 4th and 2. I think that's something that people are going to bring up. But you know what, man? It's easier to second guess it. I don't love the quarterback sneak there. I like the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1 every time. I think that they can always get that.
I love the jump ball one on the goal line.
I love the jump ball one on the goal line. And I think asking him to get 2 in a quarterback sneak is maybe stretching it a little bit. I didn't hate the call to go for it. I think there was an argument in the Slack channel that just take the whatever it was, a 45,
48 yard field goal. Take the free points.
In the rain, or not even rain, just wet turf. I don't know that that's a freebie.
Go ask Cairo Santos.
Yeah, maybe for Hauschka can add, but so I don't mind the call there. But I thought when the Bills went down for that second score, I thought that might have been Dable outside of that first drive of the Jets game where we ended up turning the ball over. I thought that was one of Dable's best series of the year. I thought they called it perfectly. The execution was perfectly. Guys got open and did their thing, but I mean, it was play calling and executing the play calling that led that drive. I mean, the Titans going to do anything to stop that.
Those 2 end arounds. The one was the pop pass jet sweep that technically counts as a pass that went to Isaiah McKenzie, and then the straight jet sweep to Andre Roberts. Just understanding that, hey, they're tired. They're not moving well laterally. Let's try to get outside of them. Once we lost Mitch Morris, we lost some of that ability for the movement on the inside trap. A lot of fans get worked up. Mitch Morris is not some behemoth. He's actually one of the smaller offensive linemen that we have. You can see it through his hips. So he's not going to, sometimes a Daquan Bowers or one of those kind of guys is going to walk him back. But he has such good movement that when we run that inside trap, he can get out there, wall off his guy, let Spain come across. And that's when Frank Gore hits those quick movement inside. And Feliciano just doesn't have the same feet that Morris does to be able to go through there. So that did take away some of those options that we love on those inside quick hitters to Gore. But they still made it work, and they still were able to lean on them as the game went.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I want to flip it over, though, because this is a hard thing for me to talk about as far as this team defense, because it's every week they're putting on the same performance. So I think people are going to get sick of me coming out here and saying the same exact thing about this defense every single week in and week out, but it is probably the best defense I can remember watching in my lifetime. And that's better than the Jim Schwartz defense. That's better than the Mike Pettin defense. Those defenses, I think, did a better job of coming up with some of the splash plays, the sacks, the blitzes, interceptions, pick sixes. You're not seeing a ton of that from this defense. We got some pressure today, and Phillips had his 3 sacks. So he was getting some pressure, and Jerry almost had a sack. So you're seeing a little bit more of that today, but you're not seeing the massive pick sixes. You're just seeing a defense that plays as an entire unit, 1 of 11, and they don't buckle. They don't give up a lot, man. I mean, in that first half, I think the Tennessee Titans only got the ball over the 50 twice in that first half. I mean, you're going to win more games than not if you can keep field position, even if your offense isn't the most dynamic offense in the world. I think fans should be super excited. I really think it's time the national media really start saying how elite this defense is. I just don't know that they're going to get that until they get the plays that show up on GMFB and the plays that show up on ESPN, which are going to be your pick sixes and stuff. They're not pulling those off yet. But this defense needs to be talked about up there with the Bears in New England and really Super Bowl caliber type defense that they're putting out on the field every single week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking about another passer held under 200 yards.
Unbelievable.
252 total yards. Not, continuing with an incredible route of the best ratio of 3 and outs. We did add 5 sacks today, which, again, was something we had been hurting on. And I'm very comfortable saying, especially after watching what Oakland did to Chicago, I think we have the best defense in the NFL. And I get it that, it's probably arguable that statistically the Patriots are better and they made a couple ones, but this is the best defense in the NFL and can do what they did to Tom Brady last week and have done every other week. We now haven't given up over 17 points yet, have held multiple teams to below that when we're trying to win a game where, we've won multiple games with 17 points, 14 points, winning like that in the NFL means you're winning with defense. And I think it's incredible that they put them in that position and that some of it is maybe dialing up some pressure when, we had a chance to get home and we finally played a quarterback who wasn't getting the ball out in 2.1 seconds and they did get home.
Yeah, no, and I thought, Jordan Phillips, man, we were really worried when Harrison Phillips was lost for the year, and I still think that hurts, having Harrison Phillips not there for the year. But Jordan Phillips has stepped up big time, especially in the pass rush, man. I think that was the big thing. People were worried with Harrison gone, who was going to be able to spark that pass rush, and I think that Jordan, the way he plays, he might not be the most lean guy that plays that position, but he plays like a grown, angry man in the middle of the field. And he's always getting some type of pressure, getting off the ball, playing good in the run defense. He might be one of the biggest steals in free agency or acquiring that not outside of the draft that the Bills were able to bring in here with this regime because he's pretty consistent when it comes to playing. And I really like what we're getting out of him. And then Tremaine. I think we can't talk enough about Tremaine Edmonds and the performance he put on. People were killing him a couple of weeks ago, and obviously we even said it and then kind of dialed back from that. But there's really nothing anybody can say about how young this guy is and the performance that he's doing. He's outsmarting other teams' quarterbacks, including Tom Brady a week ago. There's nothing that's getting by him. He's elite in pass defense, and I saw him go toe-to-toe a couple times with Derrick Henry, who's probably the biggest, most physical back I've seen in 20 years or so in the NFL.
Literally since Christian Okoye.
Yeah, and he put him on his butt a couple times, just went toe-to-toe with him and just put him down, and not a lot of people tackle Derrick Henry by themselves. And it's an impressive guy that we have back there to watch. I think sometimes we have to just kind of pause and enjoy how young he is and how good I don't know where his ceiling is right now after watching that game. I just don't know how good he can get.
Well, and the hard part is it's not sexy to be good at pass coverage. That's not what gets highlights. Like you said on Good Morning Football or on SportsCenter, you don't get amazing highlights for being a freaking predator in the middle of the field covering.
Swatting ball.
Yeah, he covers from, hash mark to hash mark. It's incredible. And, so many balls that he either gets his arm on to tip, influences the quarterback, or stops him from passing there that we don't see. You can't count and tick mark how many plays did the quarterback not throw because Tremaine Edmonds was in the way or was going to cut it off. And I mean, he might be the best pass coverage linebacker in the NFL, or is trending that way, is coming that way. And after what we saw, early in his first game or two last season, that's a hell of a transition to make within one NFL season to get to the point where he is erasing entire swaths of the field. And just to see what he might be able to add to that as he gets more instinctive, is able to read blitzes. I don't think we've seen a lot from him from a pass rush standpoint. And as he understands the nuance of the game better, Eric always says when to fire his gun. And really, when he gets that read and knows that, hey, I can tell that this running back is staying in the pass block, I'm going to time this and I'm going to fly through there. And then he can use that 6'5", 250 to really, be a pass rusher because he's a monster. I think that's exciting to think about the potential of a guy like that.
It is exciting. The one thing I'm worried about, and I'll have to watch it when the All-22 comes out, is obviously when Milano goes down, the depth of this position group. It's something we talked about a lot. It's a really top-heavy group, and you lose one of those guys, and I think you lose a lot of what the defense is able to do. Obviously, it didn't have a huge impact this week, but I think Milano's another guy that's having a sneaky good season, and it's not the type of season he was having pre-injury last year as far as how he was able to come up with some of the turnovers and those flash plays. But I think he's playing just as sound. And those two together and the athleticism that they provide at the linebacker position is really making it difficult. And I think really the defense starts there. We talk a lot about the safeties, and I'm not taking it. I think the safeties really dictate a lot of what the Bills are able to do. But then you have that layer underneath the safeties of guys that are super athletic for their position, very good in pass coverage and playing smart football. That makes it very difficult on the quarterback because there's really nowhere to go at that point. The cornerbacks are obviously playing pretty well, but you have that middle of the field kind of taken away. Man, it's a really something that plays to our advantage here going forward. And you look at the quarterbacks remaining on this list, there's a couple that I feel like could maybe do something against the Bills, but I look at it and I say, you know what? I think that most of the time it's going to be an advantage for Buffalo.
Yeah, well, and Eric brought it up here, Eric P. in the chat, that I think some fans maybe underestimated how valuable Corey Thompson was and how versatile he was looking in the preseason. There was only a second-year player coming in as a UDFA, really developing, but was a five-star recruit coming into LSU, and is similar to Milano in where he was a former safety in college, moved to linebacker, actually had almost identical measurables to Milano, and was a really nice safety blanket. And he was the guy coming in passing downs, not Zoe. So losing him, I like the fact they didn't put him on IR. So that means to me that they think he's going to come back here and we'll get that depth back. But you can tell when we lose Milano, or please, Lord, don't lose Tremaine. If we lose one of them, there's not a logical fill-in. I think Julian Stanford is an okay Band-Aid behind Tremaine Edmonds, but can't do 90% of what Tremaine does. And Zoe is a smart player, but he just doesn't have the athleticism or the quick twitch anymore to do what Milano and those guys do. He has some straight line speed still, but just not the quick twitch to go back and forth and make the quick cut. And when you put him in, pass coverage on a guy like Deion Lewis, that puts us in trouble. So thankfully, it doesn't look too serious. I don't want to project. I know I've already touched base with Kyle Trimble that we're going to try to get him on here this week to do that from a bye week standpoint and try to figure out what we can do to list out all these injuries. So there probably will be a show by himself with Kyle, but we'll take a look at where that is. And thankfully, it looks like we might have gotten away from this game without anything too serious. I didn't see much of the Cody Ford hit. How was that one?
I didn't see much on the hit to indicate what was going on with him there, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, although I don't really like him playing where he's playing. So if Ty Nsekhe can get healthy and Cody Ford needs a little time, I don't mind giving him some time to heal and letting Nsekhe kind of come in and really hold down that right tackle spot. Hopefully he'll be able to do that after the bye. But all the points about Corey Thompson's correct. And special teams, I think that he's very missed on special teams.
Oh, yeah. He was a key piece.
Yeah, getting him back will be huge, although I don't know that he can stop people from having dumb penalties, but he'll be huge as far as coverage goes and things like that. But, yeah, no, I can't wait to talk with Kyle because this list is starting to get long here as we ramp up. And when I saw the schedule come out and I saw a bye week right after the fifth game, I got a little nervous that was a little too early. But now that I'm watching –
seems like a godsend.
Yeah, watching this list, I'm very happy that we can take a pause. We have a nice record here at 4-1. Take a pause, get some guys back, and really make a push because we got a lot of home games coming up after the bye. We can make a really nice run, defend your dirt. If you can really win out on those home games, man. Now we're talking about some of the crazy predictions we had at the beginning of the season. You get some of these guys back, and really the sky's the limit for this team.
Yeah, and we'll wrap up here on the special teams and then get into our awards to close it out. But the special teams, I think that there were some really bad ones. Obviously, the penalties are rough. I do think there's a little bit that goes into the continuity and the gelling that we talk about it for the offensive line, but there's a lot of pieces to that with all the new elements from a depth standpoint on the offense in general and on the special teams. There's a ton of things that I think it's reasonable to think the second half of the season is going to be better than the first half, and that, especially a first-time coordinator like Keith Farwell, give him a chance to get some things rolling here. I'm not ready to chalk that up. I think, again, Andre Roberts was a net positive. They were afraid of him and kicking out of bounds the whole time, sacrificing yardage, and he was trying to make a play when he did get the ball. I think he's one of those guys who's just never going to fair catch and is always going to try to make something happen. And honestly, Corey Bojorquez had a couple that I think were too long and that he would have been better off not getting a touchback. But he had 4 inside the 20, including 3 right at or inside the 11 or 10, and average 50 yards on 6 punts today. So, I mean, it wasn't his worst game of the season, I'll say that. There was a couple that I would have liked to have seen him obviously angle or give a little more hang time to be able to stop and not go into the end zone. But he was solid today. Chip commented on that in the chat as well. I'd say solid is fair. Let's step back now and take a look at it. Let's start with the negative and then we'll finish with the positive. Who is your disgruntled for today?
Cody Ford.
Yeah.
I saw a number of times where guys just really were, and I think Deion Dawkins might be close there too. There's just a couple times where both of them were getting beat almost at the same amount of time, and Josh was just getting into the back of his drop. You just can't have that. You really got to be able to at least push a guy out past the drop, and I just don't know that they're athletic enough to keep up with some of the more athletic pass rushers in the league. Guys are just beating them with straight speed. They're not really doing any crazy fancy moves and beating them. A lot of the times it's just getting beat with straight speed. I'm not a offensive line expert, and it is hard to watch during the game, so I'll have to go back and check it. But he got the most negative grades for me in this game, and I thought that he put Josh Allen in jeopardy a few times from an otherwise nice, clean game Josh was having. I think a lot of the sacks were on the offensive line and not on coverage or anything like that. I think it was just offensive line kind of letting their guy down.
Yeah, I had the disgruntled as the offensive line just because it was hard for me to pick out one guy. I thought Feliciano played well. I thought Ryan Bates looked good when he came in. I thought that Quentin Spain had some bad plays. Dawkins got beat. The speed rush around the Cody Ford is just automatic. It seems like it's going to happen. We're lucky if it just happens once a game. And thankfully, I think it was just once today. Spencer Long was okay. I saw him get bull rushed really poorly a couple times. I don't think we did a great job communicating, and that makes sense. You have 2 injured guys go out. I get it that blitz pickup is not going to be the best communication piece, but it was, predictably bad. So I gave my disgruntled to the offensive line. I get it that Bobby Johnson's playing shorthanded. If Mitch Morse goes out mid-game, your other second highest paid free agent, Tyan Secchi, is out. That's forcing you to play your highest investment from a draft standpoint, Cody Ford, out of position. That's a rough domino effect. I hope that this bye week gives them a chance to get right, get Tyan Secchi back in there, hopefully move Cody Ford. I'd love to see them toy around with Feliciano at left guard or moving Cody Ford to left guard and give somebody a chance to compete with Quentin Spain. It's clear that John Feliciano is one of our top 5 offensive linemen, and I'm okay with letting Ford and Quentin Spain battle it out. I feel good that Ryan Bates probably deserves to get a little more action on game day going forward for his versatility. I'm fine with mixing him in there as our 6th or 7th offensive lineman, but we got to get right here on the offensive line, lock it in for the rest of this season to let them gel so this offense can start to get their head together.
Yeah, and Sean McDermott has made the point now multiple seasons that you don't really know your team until you start to get into November football, where we're getting awfully close. And with the record that this team has, I'd like them to kind of get this really sorted out here in the bye week. It's something, hopefully, the bye week is something you use. I know a lot of people say, last year I had this argument, a lot of people were like, well, the coaches take off and go on vacation and, everybody uses it as a week of rest. That's not true. The coaches and the scouting department are doing self-scouting. at this point. Now you have some game tape. You don't really get to do a lot of self-scouting. Now it's the time to really take a reflective look at yourself. And it's a great spot to be in. The Bills are 4-1. There's a lot of bad tape out there where they can improve upon. So you have a winning record, but you still have a lot of tape and learning experience where when the guys get back in the building, you can make some changes, make some moves, teach it up, whatever it is you got to do to correct some of these mistakes. And I think the priorities really got to be on the offensive line. I think overall it's probably the worst group outside of Josh Allen's erratic play. So if they can shore that up and all you're relying on is Josh Allen to just have a game like he did today and not a game like he had against the Patriots, I think you're in a really, really good spot moving forward. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is there or who's got to go where, but something's got to get shored up. And I think they got the staff and the real ability to self-reflect to really make this a priority and flip it going forward.
And I think they have the self-awareness that I know Ron has, for the 47th time in the chat, has brought up Trent Williams' name. And I get it. It's exciting. It would be cool. I wouldn't be upset if we trade for him. I just don't think it's realistic that we're going to give up what Washington wants, and they seem to be a train wreck. So we'll see. Now, if during that self-scouting that you just talked about, I do think that they have the self-awareness that if they see that as the biggest gap here, that maybe that's where they go shopping. And that, I've brought it up a lot. I do think it's defensive end. And I will say, I don't remember saying Shaq Lawson's name an awful lot today either. So I think that those are the kind of pieces that if we make a move, it would be a Zay Jones and a pick for a wide receiver. It would be Shaq Lawson and a pick for a defensive end. Or I guess it's not crazy. It could be Deion Dawkins in a pick for a left tackle. Now, I think that's the least likely of those. I'd rather just trade draft picks for a left tackle and see if Deion Dawkins is the dominant left guard that I've thought he always could be. But I don't know that I think he's amazingly better than Cody Ford at left guard or Quentin Spain at left guard. So if he's what gets us Trent Williams for only a second or a third rounder and not a first rounder, I probably wouldn't lose sleep over it, if that's the case. So I don't expect any of those deals, but I don't think they're out of the realm of possibility.
I think out of all those big trades that are getting floated around on Twitter, the one I would want to swing on the most is Trent Williams. I think that it does provide the biggest actual need. I think that I'm totally happy with the rest of the groups. I actually liked some of what Shaq did today. I think there was a couple of the sacks where if say Jordan Phillips didn't get in or somebody didn't get in, Shaq was right there as well. I think that was across the whole entire defensive line. I think everybody was really close to getting some sacks today, and Jordan was just being greedy out there and taking them for himself. But no, I see the biggest need on the offensive line. So if you're going to swing and it's about this season, which is all these trade talks that we're having, maybe outside of Diggs. But if you're going for AJ Green, that's for this season. If you're going for some of these guys, it's for this season. If you're making that big move for this team this year, I'm making a big move for Trent.
No, yeah, I respect it. Who do you have on the other side of the ball? Who is your gruntled? Who gruntled you the most aggressively?
Man, well, I wanted to give it to Tremaine because he had me all kinds of gruntled this game, but I had to give it to Jordan Phillips. Yeah. You walk away with a hat trick, 3 sacks, super happy for him. He tweeted out last week like something about like people are going to believe or people are going to notice soon, and he put I think everybody on notice that he's a legitimate NFL player, and he had a great day, man. So being that disruptive, I wanted to give it to somebody else. I couldn't take it away from Jordan.
No, that's spot on. I like the umbrella of big people did fun things. Yeah. So we got a fat man touchdown from Lee Smith. The biggest wide receiver on the roster, Duke Williams, comes in and has a touchdown and has 4 catches on 4 targets. But it is Jordan Phillips. And I think that Trent Murphy had some positive flashes. I think he had the quietest 1-tackle box score I've ever seen. He was disruptive the whole game. Again, you said it, Tremaine Edmonds was fantastic. But Jordan Phillips had 3 sacks and was in the backfield over and over and over again. And that's exciting, and he deserves that. So Zay, I know I gave a hard time. Zoe Alexander stole Ed Oliver's first career sack. Oliver was about to eat Mariota, and Alexander just barely beat him to it. So there was a couple of those. Yeah, I think Jerry Hughes ended up with no sacks and probably was contributing to 4 out of those 5 that were there. So it was great to see. But I agree. Jordan Phillips, hands down, player of the game, and wins our gruntled.
I'm all for it, man. Good for him.
And I think that's it. I don't think we have anything else to cover. I don't want to talk about anything else.
I don't want to talk to you anymore. Let's get out of here and celebrate the win.
I was trying to skip over that you smoked me in the bets again.
Oh, man, fine. We'll talk about it. I was not going to bring it up because it's embarrassing for you. We had 4 bets this week. We had Marcus Mariota, 0.5 interceptions. Greg took the over there, assuming that he wouldn't be able to maintain this.
And then I doubled down.
And then you doubled down also later. Somebody else talked you into it, though. You took 1.5 turnovers. You took the over there, too. Both were for 3 points, so I picked up 6 points there. Yeah. You did. This was one that was actually frustrating to me, even though I had this lead. You took Henry at 79.5. You took the under. He ended up with 78 yards. I thought for sure they would get the ball back.
It was 78 yards with like 7 minutes left.
7 minutes left. And then he did get a touch, and it was right at the line of scrimmage. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then Josh Allen got the ball and never gave it back. So you did pick up 4 points today. And then I took my boy, Duke Williams fan club president, took the over on 2.5 catches. Obviously, he ended up with 4 targets, 4 catches, and a touchdown. I should have thrown in a parlay on the touchdown there and picked up some more points. But
so since I won the biggest bet, they cancel out? Is that how that
it
works?
Doesn't. Fortunately, you're down 30. I'm up 33-14 so far on the year. So you got
terrible.
I don't know if you need the bye week off or we'll do some other games. You need to get it together, man. You got to at least give me a run here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we should pick out a couple other games. Maybe we'll pick out a couple of the games that matter to the Bills.
Yeah,
and who we could use to win, and we'll figure out if it's against the spread or who wins, and we'll try to pick out a couple games to keep the betting going. Because Lord knows I need to find a way.
On some of the more favorable ones here this week, I might even allow you to get in a 5-point bet or something just to get a home run here.
Got to take a swing at it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. Again, as we talked about, we've already touched base with Kyle Trimble. Going to bring him on from Banged Up Bills, doctor of physical therapy. Going to go through what is now a scary list of injuries. But thankfully, we are now at the bye week. It seems like all of them are in target to come back. I wouldn't be shocked if everyone is back and available by the Miami game. But luckily, we get 7 inactive, so we can give a couple people a little bit more. We're still going to do some shows. Depending on how the bets go on Sunday, maybe we'll do a quick hit on Sunday, but probably just do the week preview show with Kyle, and then we'll preview the Dolphins game coming back the following week. But we'll see if you guys are nice. Maybe we'll throw something out there on Sunday.
Absolutely.
But other than that, Aaron, thank you for a great time today. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, well, as soon as I go through and delete all my Zay Jones tweets, you can find me on Twitter at Aaron Quinn 716. Now, come on, retweet them, put it in my face. I don't care. But follow me if you're going to do that. Follow me at Aaron Quinn 716.
Come and find me at Greg Thompson, GregTompsett. You can come fan the flames of Drew and I's growing rivalry over Josh Allen on the Twitter machine. Our friends over at Rock Pile, he and I got into a little bit here in the second half. That was kind of entertaining. You guys can come over and fan the flames there. Drew's fun to needle and poke. So come on over, have a good time, have a good time there. I'm having fun with the Greg Doesn't Know Hockey hashtag. So if you guys want to make fun of me for how little I know about hockey, I'm pretending to have fun watching the Sabres. That's entertaining. So come on over, have a good time. Thank you guys for listening. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.